What's up, Hardly Typical Podcast family and friends? We are back with Season 3, Episode 2. Can you believe we are in Season 3 already? And so, listen, before we get started, let me thank y'all for rocking with us, for subscribing, for being a part of our community. We always say we're not just building a podcast, we're building a community. Today we have a really good friend of mine. I think we've probably been friends since maybe 2017, 2018. And her name is Salina Miller. And what I remember, Selena, and I'll let you tell the real version, because I might not tell the accurate version because my memory is not that great. But I remember first connecting with you online. I think I was doing a Q&A with this organization called The Mighty. And people were asking questions. I think you're one of the people who tuned in, and you had a question that I think I didn't see. And because I'm a people pleaser, I went back and answered all the questions of the people that I didn't answer live that I didn't see. And I vaguely remember you mentioning the church you were attending at the time. And I said, I know that church. And so we kind of connected that way. And you talked about your son, Elijah, and the work that you do. And so we've been friends, I think, since at least 2017. Is that something that sounds right to you? If I'm wrong, correct me.
No, that sounds about right. And I remember hearing about the autism pastor, and because I'm an autism mom, and at the time I was at the church that I was asking, oh my God, I've got to meet this guy. And I saw the Q&A and got on there and kind of listened. And then I met you in person at the conference in Georgia. And I was just blown away. I couldn't, wait to meet you. And then the next time was at Bay Press. And I think we just kind of started going from there. But yeah, you're about right. I was so excited to hear that a man like yourself that is not only autistic, but was pastoring. I was like, oh my God, I've just got to meet this man of God. And so that's kind of the gist. So you were on point.
Yeah. So we've been friends a while. And I'll just say publicly, I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate your ministry and the things that you've done. I love your son Elijah. That's my buddy.
Yeah.
And I even remember you guys coming to the sensory worship experience at Bay Press, and me getting to sit with you and Patricia and Matthew. And so, that was great. And so I say that I appreciate your ministry and those types of things. But we talked about this before, but Dr. Lee is also someone who is incredible. And so I'm glad you guys are getting to meet in this format. I'm hoping someday I can get y'all in the same room together, and we can maybe cook up something for all three of us to do together.
I'm ready for it. Let's go.
Me too. I'm ready.
Yeah. So
that would be awesome.
So I'm going to bring you in now, Dr. Lee, now that I have professed my love for her and her family.
I see. I was like, whoa, this is about to be a solo act. Okay. But it's okay. It's okay. I get it. Because Selena is one of those people that I heard about before I even knew. She's one of those people that I was searching for to connect with before I even had a face to put to the name. So I totally get your admiration for her, because it echoes mine as well. So we, in the Hardly Typical community, you guys, this is going to be a good one. Okay. We've got some great guests this season, but this is going to be a good one. So I'm going to dive right in with my first question. Y'all ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. So let's just, for those who may not know of you, who may not have heard of you, I can't believe that, but tell them a little bit about you. Just, you don't have to go deep, but where did you grow up? Were you a church kid? Tell us a little bit about Salina Miller.
Wow. So, hey, everybody. As I said, my name is Salina Miller, and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I was born and raised here. Was I a church kid? That is an interesting question. So let's say that I attended church with the next door neighbor. I was kind of raised by the community. That's a whole nother story. But the next door neighbor, she was my best friend, and her mom I used to go to church with them every once in a while. It wasn't every week, but that's kind of how I was introduced to the Lord. It was probably about 7 or 8 years old that I started that journey of going to church and on Sunday. So I don't know if I would say a church kid per se, but I did go to church sometimes as a kid.
Okay, so church adjacent.
Yes, I was church adjacent.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but it seemed to work out because
it worked out.
Yeah,
it definitely did.
Yeah. So, you talk about kind of being a church kid, and I know, based on our conversations and our relationship, that for years, and you're in ministry now, but I know, for years you actually worked at a church and you've done other things. So tell us what it was like. Like, what was the sort of the first ministry position that you had, or the first sort of calling that you had into this thing we call ministry?
So, as the first question you guys asked me about, was I a church kid? For many years, as many people, I had fallen away from church, right? I had children, went to college, and kind of did a lot of worldly things. I'll never forget, it was in April of 2009. Holy Spirit had come after me, but I got up. The kids and I didn't even take a shower. We brushed our teeth and we ran to church. That day, I rededicated my life. It was April 9th of 2009.
Wow.
And my first job, because I just wanted to be in the presence of the Lord, because, most churches you join, you have to go through members classes, but I just want to be involved. I started in housekeeping. They had a job position available. And I said, well, I'm going to get in the door this way, this is how I'm going to do it. So I did housekeeping for at least 4 years. I became a new member. And then my next position in ministry was security.
Wow.
I was on the security ministry for years. And it's so funny how God will use something, right? Because I'm a watchman in the spirit. But he started that when I became a part of the security ministry. I would walk and watch and look out for the backs of pastor and first lady in the church. And my eyes were always open and peeled as to what was going on. And I was always assigned to the children's ministry. So I constantly watched after the kids as they're being dropped off and picked up. But yeah, it first started with housekeeping, and that's how I met a lot of people and really got involved. And then security was my next ministry.
Wow. Listen, I know we've known each other for a while, but I did not know those two stories. And I got to say, I'm impressed, actually. I'm actually impressed. Like, because a lot of people, when they start off in ministry, they want to start at the top. They want to be seen. They want to, be the one with the mic. They want to be the one with the platform and the influence. And I say I'm surprised, but I shouldn't be surprised, because I've always known you to be a very humble person, and a person who just looks to serve and not necessarily be in the spotlight. So I'm surprised, but I shouldn't be surprised. Just knowing your character, it doesn't surprise me that that's where you chose to start. So that is fascinating. Now, let me ask you, those ministry positions, because one of the things that we're focused on this season is the historically Black church. Were those ministry positions, and was your first, as you say, you rededicated your life to the Lord and started going back to church? Was that within the Black church experience, or was it? Okay.
Yep. It was a predominantly, probably 85 to 90% was all Black mega church. So yeah, that was my first experience.
Wow. Yeah. And so, Dr. Lee and I have talked a lot about the historically Black church. I know even in the years of our conversations, we've talked about how can we sort of get the historically Black church to understand the importance, and not, and so I should say, not every Black church has this struggle, because the Black church is not a monolith, but there are lots of similarities because we have a shared history. But I know, Selena, like one of the challenges, and even Terisha, we've talked about this. One of the challenges in disability ministry has been trying to incorporate some of the things that we know and that we've learned and that we know are important parts of being a church and being people who build God's kingdom, is being more accepting and more inclusive of persons with disabilities and their families. And so I'm going to ask you, Terisha, like, based on our conversations, what has been your experience, and then maybe, Selena, you could also talk about like what has been your experience in the historically Black church as those who have family members or loved ones or close friends who may be autistic or maybe have some other sort of disability. I know there's an experience there that needs to be talked about. So I want to hear from both of you. Like, what has that experience looked like?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in hearing Selena's, because I feel like you have a unique perspective with security. It's your job to keep your eyes open. It's your job to observe what other people don't observe. And I've never had that position in a church. Okay. I've never had a security position, because I'll be like, oh, they're serving food. No, you're supposed to be focused. I get distracted.
Right. You're
then the pastor's
your post.
like, listen, I'm supposed to be watching First Lady in her purse. And I'm like, oh, where'd you get this? It's just not going to work out.
Right.
So, we got to know our ministries, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm definitely interested in hearing that from your perspective. So my perspective has been primarily youth director, children's director, administrative, and just as a everyday church goer. Yep. So from that perspective, I have seen everything from total and complete intolerance to passive. If you can just blend in and not make too much noise, you can stay. But and then I have been at those a part of churches that have said, we want to accommodate you, but what do we do? What? Tell us what to do. And you have to give them step by step by step, because they honestly have no executive function when it comes to accommodating us. So, okay. And then there are those churches that are actively learning and want workshops and trainings. And so I've seen it all. It all. And even still, we still have a ways to go. Yeah. We still have a ways to go. This isn't always a welcome conversation. This isn't always deemed a necessary conversation. Yeah. So that's why we have this hardly typical community, because we want to let people know this isn't just, this is a really good nuanced conversation for you all to have. No, this is a necessary conversation for us to have. So I definitely want to hear from your perspective, even from starting as in housekeeping, going to security, and as a mother, as a parishioner. Tell me a little bit more about yours too now.
So I didn't have a lot of experiences to see in different churches. Like, I went from one church to another, and that's pretty much it. So my experience is, as a parent and as a person who watched in security, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of families like me. Like, I could probably count on one hand. Yet we were a mega church with thousands of members, active going members, and ministry and coming to church. But something seemed off to me, especially when the disability community is one of the largest minority communities. Why am I only seeing a handful of us? And so it just kind of made me start to pay attention. I got to know a couple of the families and asking, why do you think that we're not seeing, and that we're not seeing a lot of us here? Well, let's keep it real. Even when I was going, I didn't bring Elijah a lot because the space was not conducive for him. I've watched families be asked to leave the sanctuary because they were stimming or because they were moving or loud and be placed in another area. And that that did something to my heart. It'll make someone feel rejected or not accepted. And the Lord began to show me that there's a heart posture issue. We don't see this community as valuable because the society has shown them as being weak, or because they have a disability, they're not the same, or, well, let's just pat them on the head and just put them over here. But no, Elijah is an intercessor. He prays for real. He loves to go to church. And it was heartbreaking to see. I've watched disability families walk away from church because they were not open in the heart to accept them and say, you know what, we need to sit down and we need to look at our structure of the church and make sure that this community feels welcome and seen and that they are a part of the community. So if we kind of transition, I said, well, Lord, what can I do? Okay, you've brought me here to this place. You are opening my eyes to help me to see that this is a real issue, that we are losing families because of the fact that the church is not open, that their heart is not set in the right place. What do you want me to do? So Mother to Mother was formed. It was birthed out of the mega church. And I said, okay, he said, start this support group for the moms, bring them together, let them know that, you know, for one, God loves you. And he gave us these amazing children, not as a punishment, but as I trust you with him, or I trust you with them or her. And so how can we open the eyes of, you know, the church population that we were a part of at the time? We did awareness events. So we kind of would have tables set up and bring people over and let's have this conversation. The most disheartening of this, and I haven't seen other experiences to change this as of yet in the Black community, is that if the head, which is the person at the pulpit, which is the pastor, is not involved or engaging or saying, yes, I see this issue and I want to rectify it, the rest of the congregation won't either. The issue for me has been trying to get the head of this particular denomination or church to say, hey, my son matters. He would be an amazing greeter. He would be an amazing this. Oh, well, you know. So my experience as of right now has been, I want to be in position to help churches see that even if you think financially, oh, we don't have the money to make the accommodations, it's not all about the money. You can open up your church building for a support group. You can open up your church building and say, hey, we can have educational things and resources available for families, just to let us know that, hey, we, you know, my son is part of the body of Christ. Exactly. He is saved. He has said, you know, the Roman road, and he is a saved believer in Christ and belongs to sit with the rest of his peers in services. So what can I do? Like, I never want to be the person to just come with a bunch of complaining, right? We don't want to be those people, but how can we come with solutions as well?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I can say, you know, we talk about our relationship and, you know, meeting at the conference, and I always forget that we first met in Atlanta. Because I always skip to meeting you in Cleveland. But I say that to say that, you know, the book that I wrote, which was based, the Disability in Church, the book that I wrote, which was based off of a talk that I did at the conference. It's since changed its name, but at the time, I think it was Inclusion Fusion Live. And I wrote that book, and I shared it to say, not to promote my book, but to say that I wrote it for people like you, Selena, who recognize what I did. That, and I've often said this as a pastor. I've pastored for over 20 years, and I always said that something that you said it is true, that nothing happens in the church that's not important to the pastor. And I knew that as a pastor, because I realized, you know, whatever the vision I feel like God gave me, whatever, you know, steps we needed to take, of course, I, you know, try to have counsel and all those things. But most of what happened in the churches I pastored happened because people realized it was important to me, and they trusted me as their spiritual leader to communicate, you know, the things that God was saying was important for us in that season. So I say that to say, when I was doing all those conferences in the places that we used to see each other, I noticed what you noticed about pastors, and that was, I very rarely saw pastors attend these conferences. It was always people like you who had a heart, who wanted to get things started. But the truth is, you could go back with all the tools and resources, and these conferences teach great things. But if it's not important to the pastor and the leaders, it's hard to sustain that. And
It
so I
is.
wrote the book trying to help people like you to read it and say, hey, this is an easy read. This is something that I could give to my pastor. Maybe hearing it from a pastor who has a disability
Yeah.
will help them to understand. And so I just want to say that you're low key one of my inspirations for writing the book the way that I did, because I wanted to help people like you who had a
Yeah.
passion,
Awesome.
people like Dr. Lee who had a passion but could not get the leadership
Yeah.
to see the importance of it. And maybe it would be like a one-off, or it'd be like a small season of, but like you said,
Yep.
if it's not important to the pastor, it is rarely important to the congregation as a whole. And it requires not just programs, it requires an entire culture shift.
That part.
Definitely.
I've even bought your book, Lamar, and mailed it to pastors.
Mm.
Remember when I asked you to come and you taught when I was at the gathering space, the online ministry.
Yes.
I bought a few pastors and mailed those books. I sent them from Amazon, sent them to their churches, their addresses, to say, hey, take a moment and like read this. Like this, Lamar knows, like this is so vital and important to see. The hardest part is that I'm only one person. Lamar is only one person. Dr. Lee is only one person. And I can't head all the efforts. When people call me, they're like, hey, I know that this is your passion. Can you come here? Can you come here? Well, look, I can equip you. And then you can go back to your church, right? This has to be a heart posture to say, I see that this is very important that these individuals and these families are included, and that they're making sure that, like you say, it's a culture change, and people don't like change, right? This means that I have to go back to my business outline and shift everything to include individuals with disabilities at the table to make decisions, not just serving your ministry. But they need to be there at the table to say, hey, this is how you can help us. This is how the church can function to be inclusive for us. And a lot of people don't like change.
That's good.
They do not.
Facts.
They do not. And I think that we need people with the tenacity to step up and say, here's what we need. Here's how we can do things. You mentioned mother to mother. Now, we can't let you leave without sharing more about that. So you were bold enough to start something. You saw there was a need. You saw there was a gap. So you started Mother to Mother. Tell people, our listeners who don't know what that is, tell us, what is Mother to Mother?
So Mother to Mother is a community. It is a community for parents and caregivers that are raising or taking care of an individual with a disability. We have grandparents who became guardians. We have moms. We have caregivers that even work in facilities with individuals with disabilities. And we just provide a space where you don't feel alone. Dr. Lee, I know you know, as a mom of an individual with a disability, this can be a lonely journey at times. We tend to depend on our family to be that support, and sometimes due to their lack of understanding, they can't be. So God was like, create this community. These families don't have to feel alone. You have somebody to talk to, somebody to vent to, because sometimes you just need to release. And you can release that to someone who understands. We provide education through workshops and different things like that. We have our monthly parent connection meeting. We've been doing it online, but starting this month, we'll be back in person. We used to have them at different locations. Yeah. People need that personal touch.
They do.
COVID,
they do. They miss it.
They miss it. Online is cool. Thank you, God, for online. It allowed us to stay connected during COVID, but people need to be in the space where they can feel the love from one another. And so that's kind of what we bring. We have caregiver night out where I may rent an Airbnb, and we have dinner and games and things to bring the family, the moms together, and they have an amazing time. We'll be there for hours just talking, but it's that space for them. We used to do vacations together. So we were learning together how to travel with your individual and still be able to have a good time and be comfortable. We even have, and we're bringing this back, more family friendly events where we go out as a community together with our adult or children or whoever, just to get out. It's just about having community, because you guys know as well as I do, during these times, community is going to be vital. You cannot be a lone wolf out here. trying to figure it out. We also talk in that layman's terms. Like a lot of us are very well educated. We are in the systems that service our children, and we understand by sharing our experiences that help families get through those tough times, whether it is your initial diagnosis, whether you're going into transition into adulthood, or they're in their 50s, in their 60s, and trying to navigate if your parent is not going to be here to take care of you anymore. What's the plan? So we talk about those things as a community. So in the gist, we are a community of just families, just trying to make it through this journey.
I love it. I love it. So needed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I've enjoyed watching over the years, like I'd watch y'all go to like professional sports games and museums and I was like, man, y'all are getting it. I wish I could be up there with y'all. Like they're just out here enjoying life. And I'm like, that's what was so encouraging to me is to see, you know, as Dr. Lee said, there was a gap in the space and in services in the church. Mother to Mother was born out of that necessity, but it didn't allow the lack of receptivity long term. It didn't allow that to stop your ministry, to stop your mission, to stop your calling. And so I'll just say, I've always appreciated that about you, Selena. I've always admired that. It has given me strength. And some of the struggles that, I've gone through recently, is just to see people who refuse to give up, refuse to allow, one space is not receptive. That's not going to stop us. We're going to keep serving the community and keep serving people and keep serving God in this capacity. And I can't tell you how much of an inspiration that is to me personally, but I'm sure it's an inspiration to other people. And maybe more so because I know a lot of the background of this story. I know the church. I know the challenges that you faced. And I know very well some of the ins and outs of that situation. And so, we're not here to put anybody on blast, but I know. I know.
There's always a backstory. There's always there's the front facing picture, but then there's always a backstory. Absolutely.
And so to see you enjoying life and continuing doing that ministry when I know it's just like get it, girl.
Here's the thing, like one thing that I always try to keep in the forefront is that Mother to Mother is not my ministry. I do not have the luxury nor the choice to say, okay, well, this is, I don't want to do this anymore, right? The Lord prepared me and gave me the charge for this ministry, and a building is not going to stop that, right? The location is not what matters. He gave me a mission and a vision, and I'm doing my best to uphold what God says. Is there times where I'm tired and I'm like, ooh, the systems are tough and the people are just not, they don't want to open their hearts and they don't want to, but I can't give up. God has not given me that option.
Give up.
I don't give up. I just keep going and keep pressing. And we've had a lot of delays. The enemy has come in all shapes and forms to try to stop this ministry from continuing forth. But what I always keep in my heart and mind is, God, this is your ministry. And I know that whatever you want, just give me the plan and I'll go with it. And I need your strength to do it. I need your strength and your plan to do it.
I love that. Like when you say that, I hear the story of Moses when he stood on that mountain and told God, look, we're not going another step unless I know for sure you with us.
Definitely. Come on.
It's like, you
need that.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. But you talk about, and I even know Dr. Lee, like the ministry that you have, family dynamics. So maybe this is a question for both of you. So I'm going to ask one question. I think I'm interviewing both of y'all.
You see how he keep throwing that in there? He keep throwing that in there like this for both of y'all.
This for both of y'all.
I'm interviewing both of y'all because both of y'all, I think you need to know how important you are to this movement. Both of you, how inspirational you are. I know a lot of times you say, like, I'm the one with the books and the one who's out here and everybody, you said you wanted to meet me. but it's really people like you. It's really people like you, because, and I say that because I think about, as you talk about mother to mother, I think about my own mother, and her raising me. And even though I didn't have a diagnosis, and when I did get a diagnosis, we talked about my history, and nobody remembers when I started talking. So there was definitely a delay there. There was all kinds of things, but this was the mid to late 70s, so nobody really took it seriously, and in our community, it wasn't something that was talked about.
Right.
And so I'll say this and say, when I look at you two, when I experience the relationship I had with you two, I think of my own mother and the things that she did, without having the support, without having the diagnosis, that raised me in such a way that contributed to what you say you both appreciate about me. But I'm thinking it was my mama, right? Like you all are doing with, and mother to mother and family dynamics, and, Black women who are blazing the trail in ways that, they're not often seen in the limelight. Right. But I think about what my mama helped produce. And what you all are helping to produce. So let me just say this, because I'm turning this now into my interview of both of y'all. I'm hijacking this podcast. Both of you have, dynamic ministries. I want to ask, this is a 2-part question, but I'll get to the second part after you both answer. What was the greatest challenge in starting and getting that ministry off the ground? Because you seem to be doing well. I want to continue to promote the contributions that you're making, but I know it couldn't have been easy. And so what were some of the challenges to starting Mother to Mother, or Family Dynamics, Dr. Lee, that you want to share with the people? Maybe there's some other moms out there who want to do the same thing, but you can probably give some insight into some of those challenges just to make them aware of not just the challenges, but the grace that God has given you to overcome those challenges. So what were some of the challenges in starting the ministry?
Dr. Lee, you want to go first?
No, girl, I want to hear what you say.
I think, so one of my greatest challenges with Mother to Mother in starting is, okay, God, I have this whole wonderful special needs child who not only is autistic, but has multiple complex medical needs. We're constantly in the hospital. We're constantly at the doctor. How do you want me to do this? Right? How am I supposed to do this? And so one of the challenges is doing it alone, especially starting out, like trying to be a mom and a wife, and I'm a grandmother, right? So I have a lot of people that I care for. And then starting a ministry requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of resources. And when you're starting at ground level, it's like, okay, who's going to come in with me on this? Right? Who's going to come in with me? Because there are times where even now, I can't always be there. I can't always do the thing. So help and support from me, I felt like was a challenge, and having consistent people there with you from start to finish, helping you with the brainstorming, because my mind is in different places, right? I'm raising him, and I'm trying to be a wife, and I'm trying to do ministry. So I think for me, it was wishing that I just really started out with a strong team that was in some of the groundwork, because I learned a lot of things and I made a lot of mistakes. So if I could give anybody advice, especially if you're a mom who is caring for an individual with a disability, try to gather a team with you, depending on what God is giving you. Now, God has graced me in this, because I try to always make sure that I'm leading with him first and listening when he says rest, because he's not going to let it fall. So as long as I'm listening to him and following his plans to the best of my ability, it has allowed you to see what you see now. There are times where I just don't have it. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the energy. But God is like, I didn't tell you to do 50,000 events and try to be everywhere. No, I told you just to do this. And so he'll make the plan straight, and he understands my life. And so I'm definitely learning a lot about that. But for me, I think it was resources and really not having I wouldn't say a blueprint to follow. Like God had created mother to mother. I hadn't seen anything like this. I think that we are different, for one, because we are a majority of a minority organization. And so we didn't see a lot like us to say, okay, how did you guys do it? And so learning framework, and I would just say needing really the hands-on support to do it was a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I echo what you're saying, especially with not having that blueprint and loving the idea of having a mentor who can say, okay, now you've done this step, take this next step. You know, that would have been amazing. But I think when I started out, so I was already an international speaker. I was a faith speaker. I was working with primarily entrepreneurs and business owners. So when I felt God tugging on my heart to transition, it's because I kept running into families who just didn't have access to information and understanding that came easy to me. I was going to read a 15-page article. They were like, I don't have time for that. I was like, okay, listen, I'm going to read it and then I'm going to break it down for you and I'll explain what's going on. Okay, we got this. We're going to do this together. But then it became very apparent to me as I continued in that speaking vein that even within the disability community, there was still a standard that did not look like us. There was still an experience that would measure disability, but it did not come from our perspective. The intersectionality of being a Black person and having a disability was discarded. No, I only want you to talk about the aspect of your existence that relates to mine. The other part, leave that. Don't talk about that. So the first time I was publicly, I don't know if I should say it, shamed, reprimanded, or called out for sharing the Black experience with a disability, I was told I was wrong. I was told I need to adjust. And I could not say what I was saying because it did not align with the white majority disabled experience. And I remember, if I can be so honest, I called Lamar. I was like, what is this? Like, did I do something wrong? Because they came so bold and confidently against me that there was a part of me that said, maybe I am wrong. But it wasn't that I was wrong. It's that it wasn't their experience because they didn't have to deal and navigate with racism in addition to their disability. And I had never had somebody tell me, leave your race at home. And I was like, well, you see this face right here? I take it everywhere I go. I can't pretend. I can't change it. I can't.
I'm Black all the time.
Every day. Every day. You know, and guess what? I got Black children and a Black husband too. So the whole family, when you see us, whether you like it or not, this is how we present. We can't hide that. So the challenge for me was becoming comfortable in spaces that only wanted pieces of me and not the whole of me. And I had to learn to become comfortable in my discomfort and still be honest and still share my experience without feeling and knowing, sharing that experience, knowing that I may be reprimanded for it later.
Wow. That is so good. I wanted to just piggyback that some of the things that I also saw is before there was a mother to mother, I had really looked around to see, well, where's the support for families? And there are hands down some amazing organizations that are really trying to be culturally sensitive. However, what I've noticed is that us as African American or Black women go into these spaces and we still don't feel comfortable with sharing. Because of the fear of, will I be judged? Will someone think that I'm a bad mom because I have these thoughts about my, raising my child or not able to do these things? So although these other organizations who are predominantly white are great, they give great resources, they give spaces. I noticed that I couldn't be myself. And I know other moms who couldn't be themselves. So they show up and they show a piece of themselves, right? And they come to get the amazing resources and information, but it was still this gap of, I still feel alone. And so I think that in part, Mother to Mother had came about because we need a space where we could just be us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unfiltered. There's no judgment. There's no looks of wow, or whatever people have experienced. I think that also is where I saw a lot of disconnect, and also, of course, the resources, and even some of the services aren't geared for us as Black people.
I can't tell you how many times I have had to fuss with an RBT or a BCBA or a speech therapist or an occupational therapist who holds up a white picture schedule, and I at least 100 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we add melanin? If one of the characteristics of a disability is that they don't see themselves, don't easily identify themselves, right? If that's one of the characteristics, then why would we put white faces in front of them and say, this is you?
Yep.
And I always get the same, I didn't even think about it. And I'm like, cultural sensitivity is really important.
It is.
Oh. And this isn't personal. This isn't personal.
No.
We ultimately want the success of our children, our loved ones, our brothers, our sisters, our cousins with disabilities who need those picture systems. But can they be culturally sensitive?
Right.
I agree. And in the area of like what we do for support for families, I am a firm believer in Christ and therapy.
Absolutely.
Bring them together. But what we've noticed is when we go to a lot of these behavioral health or therapists to get the support, they're kind of generalized in their understanding of a caregiver. Well, our caregiving, number one, being a Black woman, and number two, raising a individual with disability 24/7, 365 until one of us leaves this earth, the stress level and anxiety is totally different. One of the efforts that one of our moms, shout out to Patricia Parker, has been working this initiative with behavioral health places that provide support to caregivers, to women in general, is we need y'all to be a little more educated on how to support us, because it's not the same as a general caregiver, let alone a Black general caregiver. So those are other gaps that we are noticing, and I'm trying to partner with organizations to say, hey, I invite them to come to Mother to Mother meetings. Come and sit. Here's some of the conversations that we're having, and then let's work together. Pat has worked with organizations to provide training, so I partner with her in that. Because education is the key, but that is one of the biggest challenges, is one, people understanding that the role of a caregiver is, we're no longer just parenting. What we do is caregiving, and that the support and understanding and resources that is needed for us to be successful caregivers are lacking. Because a lot of agencies look at us as just, well, you're a parent. This is what you're supposed to do. Well, let's kind of define parenting. Like at 18, they get ready to go to college. They leave home. They go on. They have a life. They get married. They have children. No, we are with them 24/7, 365. We're not just parents anymore. So we're kind of like at this place of trying to help families understand that, yeah, you're right. You're no longer just parenting. Let's find out how we can support you. Let's work with some of these agencies and organizations to try to get this help and support.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
good. So
Absolutely.
good. So let me say, you already both addressed my follow-up question, which is, the complexities and the nuances of being a Black woman in this space. And so you both have, because I know, enough about both of your stories to know, but I did want the listeners to hear that for two reasons. One, and I often say this to Dr. Lee, I don't want this to sound paternalistic or patriarchal, but I do understand, even though I'm a Black man, I do understand the privilege I have as a man.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I feel strongly God called me to do is to platform Black women in this disability inclusion and ministry space, because of what you said. I noticed how you would go into spaces and not have the luxury of being yourself, because, and I'm going to use a word that you all didn't use, but I'm going to use it for you, because I started to see how unsafe it was for you to be your whole self. And that really grieved me because, again, I think about you all as mothers and caregivers. I think about my own mother and the challenges that she may have had with having a child who didn't have a diagnosis, but was being labeled as defiant and disobedient and all of the stuff I had to go through and the time she had to go up to the school, not having the information that we have now, and just the tenacity of being a Black woman, even back in the 70s and early 80s, trying to advocate for her child. And so it just came close home for me. And so I'm glad that you and your answers gave people some insight into that, because it is different. And so, we joked earlier and I said, talk over me, take up as much space as you want, because I understand that, there's some things that cause me to be discriminated against because I'm a Black man, but I understand that there's still some privilege in this space because I'm a man, and I want to leverage that because, again, you all are the foundation of this movement. I may get the book deals and the accolades and all those things, but to be honest with you, like I said, it's you all who inspire me to write the way that I do, to give people access and to platform the voices of Black mothers and caregivers. And also, this, for listeners, this is being recorded in March. We won't release most of the episodes until April, but I do also understand it's Women's History Month.
It is.
It is.
And so I pay attention to those things. And so the reason why I said I'm hijacking this interview is because I wanted to give you all the space that you deserve and have earned as women, but as Black women, to say,
isn't he amazing?
What is often not allowed to be said.
That's why I love him. That's why we love him, Dr. Lee. Ain't that right? This is why we love this guy. We really appreciate you for seeing us. I know, and Dr. Lee can probably attest to this, just being a caregiver, a Black caregiver, an advocate, or us as business women. We definitely want to let moms and caregivers know your voice matters. You matter. I know how many instances in the medical field, right? I've had to go in and lead with credentials first in order to be taken seriously, right? In order for them to bring me to the table as someone whose voice matters in my son's health. And so I've tried to encourage moms and encourage women, like, your voice matters. We have the PhDs over these children, and I make that known when I come to the table. I appreciate the work that you do, but let me tell you this, I know him from inside out. I need to be at the table. I've had to lead with, I have a degree and I run this business. I had to do that. I have a whole organization. Like, I got to prove to you that I'm versed in my child and his life and his advocacy. It is tough. It is really, really tough. So those are some of, like, the challenges that I've experienced just personally being on this journey with Elijah. And we definitely want to continue to encourage women not to shrink back. Find the right community, find the right women to get aligned with, and let them help build you up, educate you, and to help build you up and empower you to go in and say, look, this is my kid. This is how we're going to work together. This is what he needs. Let's work together as a team. And I had to say this, I've been able to work with many of Elijah's team, and they respect me. They honor me. They honor my opinion because of how I come to the table. That's also important because they already have a misconception of who they think you are. It's just an angry Black woman that's going to come in here hooping and hollering about her kid. No, you do have to come in there with some respect. You do come in with some humility, but you also come in with your head up high and educated and versed in your child.
And understand that, like you said, you are the authority on your child or your loved one. And I love how you said, I have a PhD in my child. So, So let me just say this, because you said something very good. And I so appreciate both of you. Again, this is Women's History Month. When we air this, it'll be April. I did want to make sure that the majority of this conversation is you being able to express what it is that you need, what it is that you have experienced, because this is not a platform that I want to be just about Lamar or, the books that I like. All that's great, but I would not have been able to arrive at where I am without the support of Black women. And I often say that, Black women, I don't want this to sound heretical, like Jesus saved me. So let's be clear. But I say in another sense, Black women saved me. They helped me to get to where I am, and to have the confidence to be able to do the things that I've done. So I don't say that in a way, salvific way.
Yeah.
I say that in a way because of the support, because of the shoulders I stand on, because of voices that spoke into me and told me that I'm not less than. And so I appreciate the ways that you all do that and advocate for your children, your loved ones, your community. But I do want to end with this, because you talked about stepping in, Selena, to the room. And the word I heard is bravery. And so I want to end with this, because you did co-author a book called We Dare Be Brave.
Yes.
So can you tell the listeners a little bit about that? I've read it. It's excellent. But can you tell them a little bit about that book?
Yeah, absolutely. Two other moms and myself, it was a funny story. We were talking about something totally different to write about, and we all got this kind of like this revelation from God that there is not a book out there. We did the research that is not techie, and talks about the emotional journey of a caregiver or a parent. And so each one of us kind of told our story. About our bravery. When people sometimes think of bravery, it's like you jumping out here and putting your life on the line, it runs out of a parked car, or sometimes getting up every day and getting your child ready to go off to school or their adult day is bravery. So we kind of just talked about our emotional journeys of being a caregiver. We provide tips on how you can do this, the importance of community, but each person shared their story. So for me, I just talked about with being a caregiver that it was hard to keep a job, right? Hard to keep a typical 9-to-5 job, how stressful this can be. At the time I was a single mom. And I just talked about, but I had to do what's best for Elijah, because that's what I was entrusted in. So I gave tips on, hey, although you could be stressed about how you're going to pay your bills, listen, there are jobs out there that are flexible. Find a flexible job. So anyway, the book just talked about our experiences emotionally, from trying to keep a job and just flowing with a child that has complex needs, to the importance of mental health and self-care, and even talking about the initial diagnosis, which Nikki talked about in the first chapter, and all the emotions she felt, about getting this diagnosis and already having this idea of how you want your son to be raised and what his life is going to be like. And then boom, you get these diagnoses. And Pat talks about her experience with anxiety disorder and what that had done to her life, but the importance of you're not alone, and making sure that you are seeking support mentally and physically. And then, like I said, I just kind of talked about, sometimes you got to change the plan. And when you get up every day, it's okay. You are just brave just from stepping out and accepting the assignment to take care of these individuals to the best of your ability with the guidance of the Lord. And here are some rules, here are some tips, here are some strategies that you can use in your journey as well. And we just kind of wanted to reiterate to them in our passages that you're not by yourself. And that's the feedback that we got. When people read this book, they was like, oh my God, this is how I felt about that. Like, this book really was needed to help them keep going. Like, I'm not by myself. I'm not crazy. I'm not tripping. This is things that we really go through as a caregiver.
Yeah. And I so appreciate you sharing about that. And, one of the things I often say, as a pastor, and when I used to counsel people, I used to always say, you have a right to feel how you feel. It is not up to me to police your feelings. And so that's another reason why I feel it's important to highlight the voices of women, and particularly Black women in this space, because oftentimes they've been told, at least from my observation, that they don't have a right to feel the way that they feel.
Right.
And so I appreciate the book. I appreciate the work that you've done. I appreciate you, Dr. Lee, and the work that you have done and continue to do. And so I want to just publicly say, listen, you all are champions, inspirations. More people need to know the work that you do, the contributions that you've made, the people whose shoulders you've allowed, or the people that you've allowed to stand on your shoulders, oftentimes not getting the credit, not getting the accolades, because I know it's tough as a Black woman. But if nothing else, I see you, and I want you to know that, and know that you're appreciated. So, Dr. Lee, any last words, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I think you actually said it beautifully. I think regardless of ability, we all just want to be seen.
Yeah.
We all just want to be valued. We all just want to be a part of the community. Yeah. So if our Hardly Typical podcast subscribers and friends who are about to subscribe can take that ideal into the world, see people regardless of their abilities, see people, honor them, value them, love them. I think we are on our way to making things better. Yeah. Thank you, Selena. You are awesome. You have inspired me. I have taken notes.
Thank you,
and
guys.
I look forward to seeing what you do with Mother to Mother.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you guys so much for inviting me. Like I said, I secretly will watch you guys. Dr. Lee, I've been watching you. Just thank you for constantly going out to educate the community, to be that advocate that speaks on behalf of us. Thank you. God chose a very wonderful person to do that. So thank you. And Pastor Lamar, you already know I call you Moses. Okay. When I first heard of Pastor Lamar, that was what came to mind. Please let him be the one that lead our people, that lead us out of the darkness into the light, that will shine the light of who our individuals are, that they can be pastors, doctors, anything that they want to be. You are the example I feel that God is using in this time to show that doesn't matter about your ability. With God, all things are possible. And that encourages us as parents as well to see you even in the midst of your health journey. You still honor God. You still praise him. You still continue to move forward. You are definitely a testament to God and a child of God and a son of God. And so we constantly keep you lifted in prayer. We know that God is using you as a testimony in so many different ways. I can only imagine what your journey is like, but just know that, man, what's going to come out on the other side of this awesome. Is going to be awesome.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your continued prayers. So listen, listeners, subscribers, man, this has been an amazing conversation. I kind of feel like we're not done, even though we got to wrap up. So, Selena, we got to get you back on here, and we got to get Pat on here with you.
Yes,
she's
definitely.
another one of my good friends. So yeah, we definitely need to continue this conversation, because I'm leaving inspired. I don't want it to stop, but we we got to stop somewhere, right?
Right.
But that means listeners, that we will bring Selena back at some point. Some of the other people that she mentioned, who I'm also connected to.
Yeah.
And again, we are building a community, not just a podcast. So we want to hear from you. Let us know how you enjoyed this conversation. Let us know your personal experiences. Let us know how we can do better, and how we can continue to platform the voices of women, particularly Black women in this space in this time, because they have been some of the broadest shoulders that people like me stand on, and we love them and we appreciate them. So as always, make sure you subscribe, you subscribe to our Substack, our Instagram, all the places that we are. And listen, we love you all, and we'll see you next episode.